Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey podcast, Patience.
Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast. This is episode 399. Make sure you click to subscribe right now so you'll never miss a journey. I post one episode each week and each guest has a fascinating story to tell. Joining us today is Anthony Nwaneri. Anthony is a podcaster, marketing expert, author, and a co-owner of Get More Listeners, a company providing personalized one-to-one podcasting coaching to coaches, business owners, and experts. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Patience. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for coming on the show.
I know. We've been trying to get this organized for the longest time, and we're finally here. So I'm pumped, I'm ready, and I'm looking forward to really diving in.
Thank you. My audience are excited to hear your story. Just start by telling us one thing we are going to learn from you today.
You're going to learn a little bit more in terms of the mindset needed when it comes to building an audience, when it comes to building a successful podcast that's growing month after month and is feeding into your business.
Wow. I can't wait to hear more about that. Let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my audience a little bit about your background, about what you did before you started your own business?
Yeah, I love that. So what I did before starting my own business was I was basically a teenage boy. You know, I lived in a small town called Kings Lynn, which is kind of in UK, a little small town just outside of London. And, you know, for the longest time, I always wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I wanted to do my own thing, but didn't really know what I was going to do. And then I thought, you know what, since I'm not too sure which line of business I'm going to go into, I originally thought, you know what, maybe I was going to be a gym owner. And then I looked into that, looked at the logistics, realized there's a lot of admin for not a lot of money. And I thought, you know what, probably best to ignore that for now. So I decided, hey, let me go to university. At the time, I was heavily into bodybuilding, so going to the gym, working out. So I decided to go down the route of going to university and actually decided to pick sports science. But whilst I was going to university, my intention was always super clear, which was I want to set the foundations of a business before I leave university. I actually I remember it was one of the, maybe like the last night before I went to university, I had my best friend come over, a guy called Kian, cracking guy's actually like half Irish. He came over and I said to him, look, mate, I'll be very surprised if I get through university and I don't drop out, because I knew what my intentions were, which was to build the foundations of a successful business and to work on that straight after university rather than looking for a job. So I guess before going to university, I was just a young guy, you know, trying different hustles and even getting into business. Just a young guy, trying different hustles, trying different things, and then just going to university to kind of buy myself some more time to really figure out what I wanted to do.
What a journey, Anthony. But why do you do what you do?
Yeah, great question. So the honest truth is, in terms of why I do what I do, I think if you were to ask me that, you know, let's say 4 years ago, it would have just been because honestly, I wanted to make some money online. I wanted to have a life of freedom. I wanted to really create stuff in the world. You know, I wanted to be a producer. I've always felt very creative. I always felt very driven to do things, to progress, to grow things. And when I'm not doing that, when I'm not progressing, I feel very empty. I feel very still. I almost feel lost. But if you were to ask me that, like I mentioned, let's say 4 years ago, the honest truth is to make money. And whereas now, as things evolve, you don't invest 4 years into a business without having other forms of motivation, because you soon realize if you get into business, wanted to make money, you get kicked in the ass because you can't make money without serving people. You can't make money without providing value to other people. You can't have a business without being of service. So for me now, in terms of why I do what I do, is to honestly create an amazing company that's helping podcasters and business owners grow their shows, get through the painful hurdle of investing their time, effort, money, and energy into a podcast and have it not grow. So being able to provide that service to them and bridging the gap from where they are right now, which is a slow growth podcast, to a rapidly growing show that is now generating them an income. To me, that is very fulfilling. And then the other side of things is building out our team. I absolutely love the team that we're building at Get More Listeners. It gives me great joy and pride. So now waking up, showing up, and trying to be a leader within our company is really why I do what I do. So I guess it's twofold. Number one, to really provide value to others and generate an income for myself to live the life that I want. And then number two, is to really be a leader to my team that we're building, who's helping us fulfill and deliver on the great work we're doing over here at Get More Listeners.
Thank you. What do you think some of the podcasts, they don't get listeners?
Great question. I think the honest truth will be that there's really twofold when it comes to, why podcasts don't get listeners. And I guess like to give you an example, most podcasters believe what they need is exposure, right? So we've had so many podcasters come in the door. I speak to hundreds of podcasts every single month, and we hear the same thing. But look, Anne, I've got so much. I'm creating great content. I've been working hard. I've been doing this for years. I know my content is good. I'm getting amazing feedback, but things aren't growing. I know I need to promote more. I want to know how to go viral on social media. I want to, get so much exposure, right? But if you think about it, I had this young guy called, I think, there's so many people who've come to me with shows, and you add exposure to their podcast, they promote their shows, and it still doesn't grow. Everyone's constantly promoting. Everyone. You go online, you see people promoting every single day. But for whatever reason, there's other people who don't promote as much, and their podcast blows up. So that tells you that it's not about exposure, it's about something else. Most podcasters have a retention issue, which means that they struggle to attract, engage, and retain new listeners. So again, I repeat that. It means that they struggle to attract, engage, and retain new listeners. Now, if you have a bucket that struggles to attract water, to engage the water, and to retain the water, it doesn't matter how much you fill it up. It's like a leaky bucket. You keep filling it up, it keeps emptying. You give your podcast exposure, people come, people leave. You can't grow. It's impossible to grow. It's impossible to have a filled bucket when you have leaks all over the place. So I think most podcasters don't grow because they have a leaky bucket. Now, the next question becomes, why did I have a leaky bucket? What does that even mean? It essentially means that they don't have a specific content strategy in place. They're not discoverable organically on Apple and Spotify through podcast SEO. I remember when I first started coaching podcasters, there's something I really struggled with because it drove me nuts when I would see podcasters promote all day and barely grow, and others who did no promotion and then get 10,000 monthly downloads in 30 days. And I started doing some digging, thinking, why is this happening? Like, why are some podcasts working hard, not getting anywhere? Others just posting consistently, and they seemingly blow up. And after a couple of diggings, I spoke to one person. They tell me how, they're just being consistent and they're not too sure why it's happened. And I speak to another person like, oh yeah, have you got the social media strategy? Or maybe is it your high profile guests? What's the strategy? What's the secret sauce? I was like a squirrel, chasing this next nut, trying to find the next hack to growth. But I never found it. And I kept on coming back to the same thing when I eventually found this guy called Jake Ward, and he had a phenomenal podcast. And the number one thing I noticed about his show, two things. Number one, his show was beautifully put together. The production was incredible. He provided real value, and it was something unique, right? So his podcast was all about meditation and specifically sleep stories for adults, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is he grew his podcast to 300,000 monthly downloads in 7 months, right? Patience, me and you know how insane that is. Without social media, without guesting, without any fancy tactics, strictly with something known as podcast SEO. Now, when I found this out, this blew me away because I was completely unaware about podcast SEO. And most podcasters about podcast SEO and the power of podcast SEO, they think it's too complicated, think it's too hard, think it's going to take way too long, when it's actually pretty straightforward. And Jake Ward, he broke his strategy down to me because, again, I was obsessed. At this point, I was hooked. Here's me, this guru guy who thinks he knows all about the strategy and the hacks and the tactics. And then this other guy, Jake, who's not even a coach. You know, the guy's just playing around with his podcast and he's grew it to 300,000 monthly downloads. So I knew there was something to learn. I knew I had to take a back seat and really understand what he was doing different. And he was intentional, right? And he knew what works. Again, to kind of loop this all around for Jake and how he grew his podcast. And for me, what most podcasters struggle is to have a leaky bucket. The production isn't high quality. They're guessing what listeners want rather than doing deep research, getting data, speaking to their target audience, asking them what do they actually want to hear. And then the third piece is delivering that content in an exciting way. Right? So again, delivering that content in an exciting way. You can have 2 podcasts about sales, and one can be interviewing salespeople. Another one can be a podcast where the listeners of the show hands the host sales objections, and the host deals with those objections live on the call. And that's an episode of a podcast. Same podcast, same targeting, same topic, totally different packaging and delivery. Which of those feels more exciting to listen to? So that's the third thing. Most podcasters struggle with their packaging of their show and how they deliver their show in a unique way. And then the final piece is really not knowing how to be discovered organically on Apple and Spotify.
Thank you. Where do you see the future of podcast?
It's a great question. So I think, from the beginning, from the very start, I think podcasting has been a gradual, slow and steady growth thing, and it's gradually gained popularity. And I think if you look at the macro landscape of culture, of news, you start to realize more and more and more that personal brands are taking over, right? A lot more people now will consume from an independent creator who talks about politics than they will Fox or CNN or BBC. They trust individual brands a lot more. And I think out of all the different mediums that personal brands can exist, you can have a personal brand on Instagram. You can have a personal brand on YouTube. You can have a personal brand on TikTok, on Threads, on Twitter. But by far, the medium and platform that has the most influence over its audience are able to build extremely deep connections. Influence, meaning they are able to change the behavior of people at scale, of millions of people at scale. A prime example of this would be Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has built up an audience of millions and millions and millions of listeners who listen to him every single week, and he has incredible influence. So much influence that Spotify are willingly paying him $250 million, $250 million that's reported for 3 years contract. That's not an exclusive, right? So in terms of direction that I see podcasting going in, I think podcasting is a very deep and intimate medium where you kind of get a vibe of what someone's like straight away. And because you build such deep trust, and because deep trust is something that's missing that people can no longer get from mainstream media, I think podcasts are going to get increasingly more popular because there's a need for authenticity. There's a need of people being genuine. There's a need of long form content with context. And there's a need of podcasters, and there's a need of people listening to podcasts. So my projection is going to keep going up and up and up. And the people who are working and building and creating podcasts in today's day and age are going to be the winners, for a decade to come. Again, it's not going to be like tomorrow or next year. It's going to be like for a decade to come. That's the direction I see really the podcast space moving into.
Thank you. Let's put him aside. How do you know you are successful?
I don't think I'm really successful. I don't really think I wouldn't say I'm successful. I think I have a very long way to go to be successful. I think I've had moments where I've had achievements, you know, whether that's financial achievements, making your first $10,000, $30,000 in a month, $50,000 in a month, whatever that might be. But that's, to me, that's an achievement. I don't think that's necessarily success. I think, to me, success is true freedom. I think I'm still on that path of finding true freedom. I'm on my way there, but I don't think I'm there yet.
Tell my audience about the magic moment, the day it suddenly all went right for you.
I think it would be the day that I dropped out of university. You know, here I am, a young kid from Nigeria who, you know, didn't know how to, didn't really know how to write, didn't know how to speak probably in English properly. I could speak English, but I wasn't like, I didn't have the, the US, UK accent, right? And my parents worked extremely hard to move me over to this country at a very young age, at the age of 6. So I'm a little young black boy in the middle of a little small town, and that's pretty isolated in Kings Lynn. And throughout my life, like I mentioned, I've always knew I wanted to be entrepreneurial. I never thought I was going to have a job. Never. Not at a single point. But I decided to kind of go through school, still in the back of my mind, no one was going to be a business owner. No one was going to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know the word at the time, but I kind of just knew I was going to do something different. And then I'll go to university. And I'll go to university because my parents, of course, wanted me to go there and explore it. But not just because of them, but because I didn't really know at that point in time exactly what industry or business I was going to start. So like I mentioned, I wanted to buy myself time. And as I started going to university, I had a ferocious attitude. I had this kind of aggressive nature to me in terms of, I want to go to university, I want to build a business, I want to dominate, I want to be something great. But over time, that spark that I first had at university, it started to dwindle. You know, you go to college, you go to university, and things are pretty chaotic, right? You know, you're surrounded by drugs, alcohol, a bunch of different things. There's distraction at every corner. And you live in a house with a bunch of your friends, your best mates, good people. And over time, that motivation, that drive, you kind of, not lose it necessarily, but it gets pushed to the side, right? And for me, it was kind of this moment when I think I was 2 years in, and I was still working hard at a degree, waking up, going to university, waking up at like 6, going to working hard throughout the morning, through the late afternoon, and then going out, let's say, partying during the evening. And I didn't really have time to work on a business. I had different ventures, different side hustles, but nothing longer term. I was making a couple grand still at university online, but it still didn't feel long term, didn't feel sustainable long term. And it got to a point where I just felt utterly lost, and I felt completely alone. And it was when COVID actually happened, March of 2020. I remember dropping down on my knees, praying to God and saying, look, dude, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I need some direction. I feel completely lost, and I don't know if I should drop out of university. And I just said, look, just point me in the right direction. Wherever you take me, I'll go. And then I discovered this thing called, it's basically called self-publishing. So like you can publish books on Amazon, and Amazon takes care of fulfillment, delivery, production of the book, but you have to create the book yourself and you have to market the book. To me, that was the moment, you could say. I think there's been various moments, but like that is the moment that kind of really pointed me towards this direction of going all in. It was a moment where I fully surrendered to God. I asked for direction, and he answered, and he said, look, dude, here's what you should do. And he answered in, again, the most beautiful way, which was an ad, a YouTube ad, one of the make money online YouTube ads that everyone's probably seen. But for some reason, I didn't ignore it. And I looked into it, invested 2 hours of my time at 12 p.m. in the complete dark with my laptop screen flashing across my face, 2 hours deep into this webinar. And at the end of it, there was a massive sales pitch for the program, which is £1,000. And I was sold. To me, that was a moment that really kind of my life in a totally that was a moment that moved my life in a different direction. But I think I would have always got to that point regardless. But that was the moment in this timeline, that point in my life in the right direction. That was my moment.
What was the hardest part of being a young entrepreneur?
The hardest part of being a young entrepreneur is when I first got started was knowing that I'm working hard on this business that I don't know if it's going to work out. I believe it's going to work out, but I don't know how long it's going to take me to hit certain goals or milestones. I have ideas, I have a timeline, but things are always so painful. And the hardest part of being an entrepreneur is when you're first getting started, you feel like you have to sacrifice everything that you love most to have everything that you want most. And everything that you want most is often everything that you love most. So what do I mean by that? When I was really in the trenches, you could say, it meant me not seeing my girlfriend as much, not seeing my family as much. I lived at home, my parents who would barely see me. You know, like I'm just working all day and all night for literally years on end to still not be paid, to still barely make any money. You have to sacrifice so much of your life and just hope that things will work out. And there were some dark days where like, you don't really know why you're doing what you're doing. You don't really, you work for 16 hours, let's say a day for 4 months straight, and you feel like you've barely made any progress. The hardest part of being a young entrepreneur is having to sacrifice so much for the unknown. But it's also the best part about being an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur, which is, you know, you're in a stage where you don't have anything to lose. Yeah, okay, cool. I 3 years, but if I'm in my early 20s, that's not time badly spent, you know? So I think that's probably the hardest part of being a young entrepreneur, to be honest, is the sacrifice you have to make at such an early age.
What did your parents say about all this?
My parents were phenomenal. My mum, you know, an old African lady, you can imagine, she was a bit more ruthless, had a bit more fire, wanted me to go down the education route. My dad kind of, you know, a bit more chill, a bit more laid back. I think when I broke things down to them, when I told them what I wanted to do and why, because I was so convicted in where I wanted to go in life, they could see that. And I think they couldn't really, it's very hard when you see someone who's truly convicted in their frame to not, it's very hard for you not to understand or feel where they're coming from, because you can't fake that. And then I think because they saw how much I worked, they weren't nervous. They weren't worried. They didn't think I was just going down the wrong path or worried I was going to get into drugs and I was throwing my life away. No, they saw me putting in the work. And I think that gave them the confidence. It bred in them the confidence. It gave them the fire, the desire to kind of want to encourage me. So my parents are fucking amazing. I don't know if I can swear, but they've been incredible, to be honest with you, throughout this entire journey.
I'm glad they were really supportive.
Yeah, so am I.
Because I'm like, they should be like, you know what? You need to go and get a job, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
What is one thing that has contributed to your success?
Having an incredible business partner, and having just an incredible support system around you overall. I think you can't really do it on your own. So support being my amazing business partner, Tygo Shea, who, you know, like it's hard to kind of put into words. It's been just phenomenal working relationship. We both understand each other. We both work extremely hard. And that's something I know a lot of people are missing. An incredible girlfriend who understands what I'm working towards. Even though we're younger, I have to make sacrifices. Still, you know, being by my side, being super supportive, being understanding, and pushing me forward. Having incredible parents who, again, are loving, who pray for me every single day. An incredible brother who's a good role model. An incredible sister who's also a good role model. An incredible, you know, friends who really care about you. Have an incredible support system around you has been one of the best things I could ever ask in business, because although I felt alone in the journey, I knew I was never alone. You know, I knew the people around me really cared and loved me and really wanted to see me succeed. So it's a different fire to what other entrepreneurs might have, because some people want to prove themselves, and part of me still wants to do that. Yeah. But overall, my loved ones, the people that I love me incredibly and support me incredibly. So that is the biggest asset so far, I would say, that I've had during this entire journey.
Thank you for sharing. Tell us what has helped your business grow the most over the last year.
That's a great question. You know what? I think when it comes to business, I think the main thing that's helped us the most is just having focus, like setting specific projects. So what most people do when they first get started in business is they have 1,000 different ideas and they think they should execute on every single one every single day. That would be a mistake. Here's why. You only have so much bandwidth in a day, and the biggest asset you have is your focus. really struggle with this at the start because I'm a creative. I have 1,000 different ideas. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. But oftentimes it's picking one or two things and having an obsessive focus on those one or two things. Having one or two projects over a 19 to day span. So 3 to 6 months projects and just working on those. For example, I want to figure out how to generate leads for my business. Okay, cool. That's step one, basically, of any business, to be honest with you. Or step one of now making money, which is, that's a lot for the business, the lead for your pipeline. So let's say, you wanted to generating leads for your business. Most people think, okay, let me just do more. Let me go on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. It sounds great in theory, be all places at once, but it's terrible because your bandwidth is so small. So what do? Yeah, focus. You pick one platform. For me, it was cold email. I will now become a master at cold email. Where do I start? YouTube videos, buying programs, and then more importantly, testing for yourself. And then just work on cold emails and generating leads for cold emails for 6 months and do nothing else apart from that one thing. That's it. All business is solving one problem. Once that problem is solved, another one will arise. 3 to 6 months is a good time span to try to solve one big problem in your business, period. It just is. And once you have that clarity and that focus and direction, you just wake up every day and you chip away. And you're going to get bored and you're going to get annoyed and you're going to feel like not moving anyway and not making progress, but that's okay. Because everyone else is going to spend the next 2 years trying to figure out this one thing because they're trying to solve 5 different problems rather than solving one problem at a time. So for me, the strategy that's helped me practically the most is just understanding what is the most urgent problem I need to face in my business right now and solving that. Everything else literally doesn't matter.
Thank you for sharing. Let's talk about your business. Tell us more about it and how can we join you?
Yeah, so our business is getmorelisteners.com. We are a company helping business owners, coaches, busy professionals in their field turn a slow growth podcast into a rapidly growing positive ROI show in 6 months. So it's essentially a coaching program, and we, whoever we're working with, the business owner we're working with, gets access to our entire team, our infrastructure, and we build out a specific strategy based on their show and based on their goals. So that's really what we do at Get More Listeners.
And this program, who is it for? Is it for people who are earning 6 to 5, or is this for anyone who can join this program?
Yeah, so really, again, business owners, coaches, and busy professionals. So those are really the people we're aiming for. So in terms of how much they're earning, how much they're making, if they're business owners, they're really right now what our clientele looks like is people earning, multiple 6 figures per year and 7 figures per year. And those are really the businesses that the clients we're working with now, which I feel incredibly grateful to even say that. Yeah, it's been an incredible caliber of human beings who've been able to attract and to get more listeners as clients. So those are really it. So multiple 6 figures, 7 figures. That's really the range we're working with.
So the beginners are left out.
The beginners are unfortunately left out because, if you're a business owner and you're making 6 figures and 7 figures already, then we can work with you and it works well. The reason we didn't work with complete beginners if they're not in business, or if they are in business and they're just starting, is because it just doesn't make sense in terms of an investment for them right now. It just wouldn't make sense for them. And if they have a business, then great. But if they don't, then it's a big investment for them to be making straight up front.
And what advice do you have for the beginners then?
For the beginners, I think, depending where you are, if you're a podcaster, business owner, it doesn't really matter. I think it's just you just got to do an absurd amount of work, like a disgusting amount of work, and it needs to be focused work. So whatever perception, whatever idea you have of how much work you need to do in order to reach the goals you have, 10x that. And then whatever the timeline you have of how long it's going to take you to achieve the specific goal, 3x that. That's just the honest truth. I think the main thing I can give to a beginner is just managing your expectation of how much work you'll have to do and how long it will take for you to reach the goals you've set out for yourself.
Thank you. There will be more from Anthony in the moment. If you are encouraged by Anthony's journey, please go to my website at onlinesuccessjourney.com, where you will find more amazing free content. Introducing the Podcast Mastery Interview Coaching Course. Unleash your inner rockstar podcaster. Whether you are a beginner podcaster or a seasoned podcast guesting, this course is tailor-made for you. Imagine refining your interview skills, mastering the art of storytelling, practical exercises, monetization strategies, and community support. That's what the Podcast Mastery Interview Coaching Course is all about. Visit onlinesuccessjourney.com/coaching. Let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality, one interview at a time. That's onlinesuccessjourney.com/coaching. Remember, it's not just about the mic. It's about making an impact. Join us on this exciting journey. That's onlinesuccessjourney.com/coaching. Now, Anthony, I would love for you to share more with my audience if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you. Do you watch movies or read books?
Both. Right now, movies. Movies? Yeah, I watch movies.
Okay. As what is your favorite movie that has some relevance to being an entrepreneur?
I've got to think now. The movie that has been an entrepreneur. You know what it is? Patience. With the movies, a lot of movies talk about money and this and that. They're very rude. They're not like, they didn't glamorize being an entrepreneur in the best ways. They glamorize making money in the not so nice way. So in terms of books, for me, the biggest book that helped me the most, and when I first started, was a book called, that's just pure business mindset tactic, I'd have to say, Millionaire Fastlane. Incredible book.
Wow. If your business was down to its last $100,
yep,
how would you invest it?
I don't think I would invest it. I don't think $100 is going to get you anywhere. I'll probably go out, have a nice meal, and I'll probably just. I don't think you couldn't do much of $100. To be honest, I think it wouldn't be $100. It would be the work you'd have to do. So you would have to do more rather than pay and invest, because $100 is not going to get you much. Which this might not be the best answer for beginners, but that's just the truth. $100 is not going to get you much in business.
If you had a little note in your pocket,
yep,
what would that be?
The notes in my pocket that I do actually have, they're just personal goals, business goals really that I have. So our current business goals, so to reach, make, a good amount of money as most business owners do. But yeah, for me, it really is about getting more consistent in terms of our revenue we're generating each month. So I've just got the number in my pocket as a little goal. I look at it once in a while. I remind myself what I'm working towards, and that's it.
What is your next chapter?
Traveling with my girlfriend. I think my next chapter is living in different locations around the world and starting to really get consistency. Traveling in different locations around the world and building something beautiful with my business partner and my girlfriend. I think that's really the next chapter of where I'm at right now is really building a phenomenal team, building them up, becoming more of a leader and experiencing more of life so I can show up as a better leader for my team, for our clients, and for the work that we do here at Get More Listeners. That's really the next chapter of my life.
Do you feel you succeeded or you're only on the way?
I'm on the way.
Will you ever stop?
Absolutely not. Well, yeah, right now I don't think I'll stop. No, I don't think I'll stop for a very, 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 very long time.
As we come to the end of our interview, what additional wisdom would you like to share with our listeners?
If you're in a spot where you feel completely lost, that there's more out there for you in the world, but you're not too sure what you should be doing, but you can just feel this nagging feeling, and you've always had this nagging feeling in the back of your mind, like you could be doing more, like you should be doing more, like you're destined for more, and you're not too sure what direction to take, what steps to take. I'll just encourage you to, surrender to God, and surrender, humble yourself, and just speak. If you're not religious, that's fine. You can still just speak as if there were a God, and just try to connect with the source and just ask. Just pour your heart out, whether if that's you being angry and saying for fuck's sake, or why this and why that and why don't I have that, it doesn't matter. Just pour your heart out. And if you're going to moan at the start of it, that's fine, but end by surrendering and saying, hey, look, I feel very lost. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. Please give me direction. No matter what it is, I will follow it. And when an answer comes, it could be a YouTube, it could manifest in different forms. It could be a YouTube video. It could be someone telling you something. It could be this podcast. It doesn't matter what it is. When that sign comes, you have to listen and you have to take action. If not, you're a complete idiot in the situation. So that's my advice is, lies with wisdom. If you feel lost, but you listen for more and you're not sure what direction to take, just pray to God, surrender to God, and have an open mind of what that next step will be for you. Don't be closed, be completely open.
Remind us how we can connect with you.
You can listen to my podcast. So if you're a podcaster, business owner, coach, you're thinking about starting a podcast, we have a phenomenal podcast, me and business partner Tycho Shea, called Why Your Podcast Isn't Growing. Again, that's the show helping podcasters gain clarity around why their podcast isn't growing and giving them the steps they need to fast track a slow and steady growth. We reveal everything. Our recent episode, which is one that I would highly recommend you listen to if you want to kind of get yourself started. I'll give you the actual title of it. It's called Use These Psychological Principles to Grow Your Podcast. So again, if you're interested, check out Why Podcast Isn't Growing, episode 101, Use These Psychological Principles to Grow Your Podcast.
Anthony, it's been great to have you here to share your online success journey with us.
Thank you very much.
Remember, success is a journey. Don't wait. Let's start the journey. Patience and Anthony.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to Patience and her guest and want you to know that there are hundreds of episodes available at onlinesuccessjourney.com. Patience would like to thank you for listening to the podcast, and she has a free gift for you on her website, including an audio compilation of her guests' best tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. Additionally, there are special clips of over 250 episodes that have never aired on the podcast and are only available to members of the Online Success Journey. Check the website and click on Join Now to get free and instant access. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps us each chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed on the favorite platform you have to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the Online Success Journey and listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review the podcast at Apple Podcasts and other sites. We appreciate your help and your willingness to share the journey. One last thing. If you're feeling a bit lost or overwhelmed on your own journey, Patience can help. Check out our coaching sessions on how to set goals and double your productivity while you're at the website. Working with Patience is a great way to get back on the right path. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.